To all you sports fans, did you know you can stream this podcast on Spotify right now? It's easy. Open the app on your mobile device or desktop, click on the Browse channel, then click on the podcast section. You can also stream on your smart speaker. Now, it's that much easier for you to stay up to date on all the latest and greatest in all things sports, thanks to Spotify.
Welcome to NFL Live. Here's our timeline this afternoon. The NFL owners have approved a new catch rule. It was unanimous. The requirement to maintain control of the ball throughout the process going to the ground no longer applies. We'll have more on that coming up. Plus, how does having start there?
How you guys doing? Good. Sue or the speculation on Odell first? Which one is it?
Listen, he's absolutely right. Ndamukong Suh and his future, or the speculation on Odell Beckham Jr. You know what? He asked, you answered.
He was in the production meeting. I think it's Odell Beckham. I mean, listen, Sue signing's a big deal, but I think it's Odell Beckham.
That's where we'll start. Tim has spoken.
Listen.
John
Notice how she asked me and not you?
Wow. Made it clear he wanted to see better behavior from his star wide receiver before he did reward Odell Beckham Jr. with a contract extension. And earlier today at the owners' meetings in Orlando, Giant head coach Pat Shermo echoed that same sentiment.
What was your reaction to what one of your co-owners, John Mara, said, who said, hey, we were 3-13 last year. Nobody's untouchable.
Yeah, I think that's really the narrative. You know, we're trying to make the team as good as we can make it, one decision at a time. And, when you go through a year like that, you're doing everything you can to get the team better. And we've got the Super Bowl champion in our division. And so that's why you just kind of break it down. We've got new eyes in the building. Dave and I talk a lot about what we want this roster to look like, and certainly collaboration with ownership. And so what we end up doing is trying to make the team as good as we can make it.
There are reports or rumblings out there that you may be talking to other teams about trading Odell Beckham Jr. How would you characterize that?
Yeah, I think that's just talk. I can't and wouldn't confirm any of that.
Bottom line, one more question about Odell Beckham Jr. Do you want him on your football team?
He's an outstanding football player, and he's on our team right now, and so that's how I'm moving forward as a coach.
In the past 2 days, there have been 2 reports about Odell. Okay, they've been floated that he won't take the field without an extension, and the Rams are interested in trading for him. I understand the reports. People are going to print stuff. I get it. But I want you to understand this. Neither Odell nor his agent have contacted us regarding either report.
Do you want Odell on your team?
I'm not going there. Next question.
Dave, you said last month that Odell had a clean slate with you, with the off-field stuff and everything.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Has that slate been scuffed up already?
What's that?
Has the slate been scuffed up already?
You tell me. You tell me.
There's been a lot of stuff, right?
You tell me.
Video.
Next question.
You know, when the Rams executives were asked about that report and Odell Beckham, they said, you know, we got to be careful. We don't talk about other teams' players, but you've seen what we've done in the offseason. We're not afraid to trade for anyone. Have they contacted you about Odell Beckham?
I'm not responding to that report. The bottom line is, Ernie taught me, and I told you guys this, you don't quit on talent.
Well, if you don't quit on talent, you're not quitting on Odell Beckham Jr., that's for sure. Mort and Adam in Orlando at the owners' meetings where this is all taking place. Adam, what are you hearing regarding Odell Beckham's future?
Well, Wendy, you don't quit on talent, but you certainly try to make sure that that talent is somebody that you want to have around in the future. And you listen to all of these Giants officials address the situation. Nobody has squashed the idea that the Giants are interested and open to dealing Odell Beckham Jr., which leaves this open up until and during the draft if a deal does get done. But the Giants have done nothing to squash it. I think there are teams out there that are quietly eyeing Odell Beckham Jr. I think there are teams out there that are trying to figure out what a price would be. One general manager told me yesterday that if Odell Beckham Jr. were traded, he could see the price being a 2 and a 4, which is exactly the price that went for Marcus Peters, another talented player traded this offseason to the Los Angeles Rams. Another GM said he saw the compensation being something in line for what the Seahawks once gave up to the Minnesota Vikings, a 1, a 7, and a 3. But you get the sense there between those two trades is the proper compensation for Odell Beckham Jr. And while the Giants have been quick to admit that they are not openly shopping Odell Beckham Jr., Mort, it certainly seems like they are open and listening to offers that would come in for their talented wide receiver.
Well, let's review the past few days. Heard some undercurrents before John Mara, the co-owner, spoke that something big could come up, and it seemed to be talking about Odell Beckham Jr.
Correct.
We heard that behind
Sunday.
the scenes on Sunday. Then John Mara comes out and says he's tired of talking about him. Nobody's untouchable on this team. And then Pat Shurmur, the coach, the new head coach, kind of leaves that he's on our team right now, although Pat tried to tell me that's not what I meant. But then Dave Gettleman felt compelled to come out and address this with the media. And during that, he said, you don't quit on talent 2 times. So he said that, but he also was asked, well, can you say for sure Odell Beckham Jr. will be on the team? And something that we didn't show, he said, well, I can't even predict whether I'm going to have a heart attack in the next right now. So there always seems to be some qualifier. So you have to believe, as Adam has suggested, that they are open to it if the right deal came along.
Guys, thank you. We'll get back to you momentarily. And we've certainly seen some wideouts get shipped off to other teams in their primes. It's happened before. Terrell Owens went to the Eagles in a 3-team deal after a settlement regarding his free agency situation. Randy Moss was traded twice between 05 and 07, and he eventually landed in New England. And then Keyshawn Johnson dealt to Tampa Bay from the Jets in the year 2000. We ask this, as we often do, time for patience, or should we panic? And with that, I mean Giants fans that Odell Beckham Jr. will be on their roster on opening day. Panic or patience, Tim?
Well, here's what I would say. Panic or patience on this?
Oh, you've got the button.
Yeah, I have a button here. I'm
good.
prepared to use it because JPP, does he have talent? Yeah.
Yes.
Did they quit on him? They trade him? They get rid of him? Listen, I have panic on this one. The reality is, yeah, of course he has talent. Nobody is disputing that Odell Beckham Jr. has talent. But John Mara was tired of talking to him yesterday. Dave Gettleman's still talking about him today. Pat Shurmur is talking about him today. Do you think John Mara is happy with how this is going, that they're at the owners' meeting and they're answering all these questions about Odell Beckham Jr. and they're asked simple questions like, do you want him on your team?
And they can't say an affirmative yes.
Do you want him on your team? And they don't even get a straight answer out of that. I think the Giants are very ready, and they're sending a signal to the rest of the league that they are open for business.
Diana?
All right, I'm going to...
Do you need the button?
I can help you if you need
you see what they're trying to do already? What side am I going to pick? Which brother am I going with? I'm going to stick with Tim, so hit it for me, please. I am in agreement, and Adam laid it out perfectly, which is they're not doing anything to send the message of Odell Beckham Jr. should be on this team. It's a simple word. It's a simple way to answer a question. We've seen them do it before. Just take a look at some of those interviews that they've done, a month and a half ago. They were so excited about Odell, and it's been very clear that they believe he's talented. We know that. but are they willing to pay? And it seems at this point that is not something they're willing to do.
Well, it's interesting to me when Gettleman was also asked, you said he had a clean slate. He did get a straight answer there. He said, I did say that. And then the question, is that the case now? You tell me, because clearly it's not. There's already been another incident.
Everyone says pay the guy, but we don't have to live with them, right? The Giants know what they have to live with.
Yeah, and I'm going to disagree with you guys. I think this is patience. Obviously this is annoying for ownership and for the GM and for the head coach to have to answer these questions, and 3 questions that the head coach had to answer about him. But I just think this is contract negotiation. Like, these guys are all speaking the same language. I remember even as a player, we had a great player on our team that was holding out. And the PR director would come to me and be like, hey, listen, could you please not use these buzzwords when you talk about your teammate? Please don't say best player in the game. Please don't say franchise player. Please don't say
invaluable
agent.
So what, Walter Jones, did you tell him?
I'm not saying who it is, but they were saying, hey, we don't want the agent to go use this against us. And so when I hear ownership, GM, head coach in unison, very measured, very calculated with what they're saying, it's 2 things. It's, hey, we're in a contract negotiation, and also stop leaking things to people like you're not going to step foot on the field. And then the other thing is, yes, hey, if someone's crazy enough to make us an offer, LA or someone else, we'll listen. We are rebuilding. We will listen to any and all offer that someone has.
Well, to your point, they said that they want to establish law and order, right? That's the first thing they said they wanted to address in that Giants organization, and them being in sync this way. But they can say all they want. It's all going to come down to what they do. That's what players care most about.
Did you think Gettleman's response was measured? Really?
Yeah, that was.
It didn't really seem measured.
I meant the owner and the head coach were measured.
Did he look like he was taking
that was
notes?
Entertaining. I actually enjoyed it.
Making sure
I
of it.
enjoyed that.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. How about, you talked about LA, so we'll talk about LA as well. Here's our other top story for this afternoon. If one is good, 2 could certainly be considered better. The Rams have certainly secured the 2 best interior linemen in the game, adding 5-time Pro Bowler Ndamukong Suh to the same line as Aaron Donald, the reigning Defensive Player of the Year. The Rams reached agreement with Suh on a 1-year, $14 million deal. Here's the head coach.
We're excited. We feel like it's a good fit. There's been some players that we have a lot of respect for on our roster that have kind of been instrumental and influential in terms of kind of getting this thing over the top. And we're excited to get going with him on April 16th. I think when you look into something like this, Ndamukong and Aaron both have talked amongst each other. And I think it's very important when you talk about a player like an Aaron Donald, hey, here comes Ndamukong. How do you feel about that? I think the mutual respect that exists between those 2 players was imperative and really paramount to be able to even pursue this in the first place. They felt good about it. And I think the one thing you feel so good about Aaron Donald is, he said, hey, the guy's a great football player. If he can help us win, let's get him on board, and that's really exactly what that entailed.
We go back now to Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen at the owners' meetings in Orlando. And Shefty, walk us through this.
Well, listen, Wendy, this was a situation where Ndamukong Suh wanted to take his time and make sure that he chose a place that offered him 2 things in addition to money. Number 1, he was looking for a situation where he would not face double teams on a constant basis. In New Orleans, he could have played with Cameron Jordan. In Tennessee, he could have played with Jarrell Casey. But in Los Angeles, he gets the opportunity to play next to Aaron Donald on an every down basis. And I think that made it awfully attractive to go play in L.A. next to Aaron Donald with Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, and Sam Shields in the secondary. And the other thing he was looking for was a place to win. And the Los Angeles Rams, with the type of offseason that they have had, are now poised to win. Sean McVay, Wade Phillips, they are in charge of leading a very talented unit that has had a very successful offseason. Of course, we've seen teams in the offseason struggle to win in the regular season, but the Rams look like they are gunning for the Philadelphia Eagles and the rest of the NFC.
Well, there's no question about that. But you mentioned a couple names there. You mentioned Sean McVay, the young coach, but you also mentioned Wade Phillips, who's is he 70 or 71? I was just talking to Les Snead, the Rams general manager, about this a short time ago, and he says Wade Phillips, being 70 years old, has a unique ability to connect with young people. Because I asked him, basically, you got these guys like Talib or Peters or even Suh, who some people think are tough guys to manage and coach. He said Wade has a unique touch with him from being a guy who's up there in years. And he's got a great defensive line coach in Bill Johnson, so they're excited about that. But I think Wade Phillips is one reason why they think they can make this work, even though with other teams, we've seen this stuff backfire on them.
And Sean McVay said today, Wendy, that Wade Phillips has more swag Then Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, and Ndamukong Suh. So Swaggy Phillips is going to be counted on in L.A.
That's a lot of swag, gentlemen. That might even be more than you guys, but I'm not sure. Stay with us. We want you to explain the new catch rule coming up. The Rams brought some defensive firepower to Hollywood during the offseason, adding first-team All-Pro defensive tackle Suh, as you just heard. They traded for 2 pieces in the secondary, adding Marcus Peters, who's got an NFL high 19 picks since 2015. And then there's Aqib Talib. His 10 career pick sixes, the 4th most in NFL history. This is a talented group, at least on paper, and I get that you don't play there, but panic or patience with regards to NFC West offensive coordinators facing that group we just named. Diana, we'll start with you.
I'm going to go with patience because, in New England, they have a saying up there is we're not in the business of collecting players and talent. We're in the business of creating a team. So while they have several talented players on this team, I'm interested to see, and Mort just touched on it, those are 3 big personalities. Two of the 3, you've heard a lot of rumblings from their former teams about them not perhaps being the best team mindset type players, good locker room guys. So while Wade Phillips has some of that swag, I think they have a lot of challenges ahead of them in terms of making that work.
I agree with you, Diana. I'm going patient as well. The other thing they say in New England is do your job. And they win a lot of games because guys will do their job. Not everybody on your defense is the playmaker. Sometimes you need to occupy people so somebody else can go make a play. And that's great that Wade Phillips has a unique ability to, interact with younger players. But he's not on the field, and he's not in the huddle. And I don't know where the leadership is coming from on this team. I mean, to me, I think that you have volatile, big personalities on this team and a lot of guys that want the credit. And that doesn't always work and translate. I'd be patient. Look, they're good. Don't get me wrong. But they're good, but I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree again. I'm going to say panic, okay?
You want to be wrong again?
I'm buying on Wade Phillips. I think Wade Phillips is the perfect guy. Does he have swag? Yes. Is he 70? Yes. But you know what? Dick LeBeau's 80. He's got swag, too. Pete Carroll's, I think, one of the oldest coach in the NFL, if not the oldest. So I'm buying. I mean, what's his Twitter handle? Son of a bum. Son of a bum. Wade Phillips is the perfect guy. I know he's not on the field. I know Ogletree is gone. Yes, they're going to need some middle linebacker or safety to step up and be that person. But I like this signing. I think this is if you're a team in the NFC West right before the draft, now you have to bump up the value that you once had for interior line play. And those guys, Aaron Donald, Suh, they could go play outside at defensive end if they had to in a 3rd down situation. So I think this is a real problem for coordinators.
Well, I would say this, too, whether it's panic or patience, what there is intrigue. I mean, if you've got to be interested, whether you're a Rams fan or not, to see how this group comes together and see what happens, because the ceiling is high. That we can agree on. Whether they get there is a different story.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him, "Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash." His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Our Texans Nation reporter Sarah Barstop tweeting this, another injury update. O'Brien said running back Deontay Foreman, that's a torn Achilles, should be ready for training camp. Meanwhile, the NFL owners' meetings continue in Orlando. They will do so until tomorrow morning. This morning, head coaches from around the league were available at breakfast. And according to Colts head coach Frank Reich, Andrew Luck is throwing a football again in his rehab from that shoulder surgery and is expected to rejoin the team when it begins their offseason conditioning program on April 9th. Here's the head coach.
Yeah, I think he's doing well. I think he's continuing to progress the way that he expected and that we all expected, and is on course, exactly where we want him to be at this point.
He's feeling good. He's working really hard and diligent, not skipping a step to get his body back to where it needs to be. He's currently still working on the throw motion stuff that he's working at, really tying his lower body into his upper body. I think when you watch tape of him in the past, he played with a big wide base. And the guys he's working with right now are doing a nice job really retraining him and using his lower body to take some stress off his shoulder, which I think if we just look at the history of the league, a lot of quarterbacks have done that. We will ease him back in. He's going to be with the team April 9th. We're planning on him being part of the team and going through activities.
But we just don't know how extensive those
we
activities will be.
don't know how extensive it'll be right now.
Will any of those activities include throwing?
Yeah.
Well, certainly there's no reason to discount any of that, and we hope and believe Andrew Luck is taking the right steps. But there have been setbacks along the way. We know that. This has taken quite a bit longer than anyone anticipated, at least initially. So, Matt, I'll start with you. As you watch him before, what are the expectations now, given where we were and where we've been?
Well, it's nice to hear that he's going to be throwing. A year ago from today, we weren't saying that. And, I think everyone knows the kind of player that Andrew Luck has been. His first 3 years going to the Pro Bowl, leading his team to the playoffs each year, and then even to the AFC Championship game. But he wasn't healthy after a stretch because they weren't protecting him. So even if Andrew Luck comes back healthy, they got to figure out all their other issues. And yes, they are rebuilding. Times there was no protection. Other times there was enough protection. Guys would be open, and Andrew Luck didn't play like the Andrew Luck that we saw those first 3 years. Because that's what happens as a quarterback. Sometimes, sometimes it's on them, and then you get gun shy a little bit. You're not as accurate as you once were. These are 3 plays in a row from the game in 2016, the last season that we saw Andrew play. And having been a teammate of him, I know how good this guy is. I know how accurate this guy is. And what I see on film from that season was a guy that was just taking a beating and probably wasn't healthy. So if he does come back healthy, that's awesome. But everyone else has to fix the other stuff as well if this team's going to get back to winning division titles.
There's no question, Tim, that they needed to protect him in the first place. But now more than ever, he's got to stay upright.
He does, but I think that everyone should be really encouraged by this situation. Matthew referenced a year ago him not throwing. Listen, it was just a month ago where Chris Ballard, the general manager, was talking about, hey, look, he's doing throwing motion stuff, but he was very quick to point out that he wasn't throwing a football. I think that we're past that now, and it's been a long time. It's not like he had a surgery and then had to have another surgery. He had a surgery, and he's been able to get better and start throwing without another surgery. I think that's great news if you're a Colts fan, and truthfully, it's good for the league to have a guy who is one of the brightest young stars coming out of college be healthy and be able to be ready to play a season.
And I just saw him recently. I mean, he looks great. He's big, strong, physical. He looks like he's been working out. That's also a good sign.
And again, the hope there, as you heard them say, the expectation anyway, is that he'll be available when the off-season conditioning program begins. That's coming up on April 9th. Nevertheless, we've gone back at it to define exactly what is a catch. The league has continued to struggle with that definition, and the latest iteration of the catch was approved today unanimously, 32-0 by the owners. And here's a look at the other rule changes that also passed today. Touchbacks resulting from free kicks will now be placed at the 25-yard line. The biggest rule change is the revision of the catch rule, as I mentioned, approved by all 32 NFL owners, and the officiating department in New York now has the power to instruct game officials to eject a player. That is a change as well. We'll go back now to Orlando at the owners' meetings where Sal Paolantonio anchors our coverage with Mort and Adam.
Hello there, Wendy. We got the great Adam Schefter here and the great Chris Mortensen. It's a big, big day. We got a new catch rule in the National Football League. And I can tell you, football fans across America are rejoicing. The catch rule was like the U.S. tax code. Nobody could figure it out, right? We couldn't figure it was a catch or not a catch. But now we can do it, Mort. What do you got?
Well, yeah, we think we can do it until we get to the unintended consequences once the season begins.
Let's first tell people what it is before we extinguish the excitement.
Control.
Okay.
2 feet down or a body part, such as a knee.
That's simple.
Such as a knee. And then a football move or the ability to make that football move. In other words, the ball can move and it can still be considered control. And then it's a catch. The whole idea that if the ball comes out when you hit the ground, that's no longer going to be a factor in terms of determining whether or not it's a catch.
Before I get to the idea of those unintended consequences, the idea behind this is to make it clearer, 1. 2, put it back into the hands of the officials on the field. And 3, get something better that's not sacrificed at the altar of something that's perfect, right? They wanted to get something better.
Well, listen, and that's the idea of this. The idea is to simplify it, come up with exactly what Mort's talking about, control, 2 feet down, a football act, and they're hoping that makes it better. But as Mort said, I think the concern here and some people around the league have alluded to it, is what is going to constitute a football act once you catch the football. And there are going to be some decisions that come up on some replays that we're not anticipating right now, but I can tell you people around the league actually are. Yeah. And in sitting this morning with John Gruden, he was talking about the fact that replay at this point in his mind just slows down the game. It's bang, bang. He'd like to see it done the way it was back in the schoolyard where there's no replay. You make the best call because it happens so fast.
Just have an argument,
takes away the rhythm of the game.
Yourselves. Is this what
correct.
Sal, I will still maintain, as I did yesterday, that I think we saw this rule in action during the Super Bowl when the Eagles played the Patriots.
There is no question about that.
All of that, I think, was in action at that
I talked
game.
to Al Riveron yesterday after the press conference, the vice president officiating, and it was pretty clear to me that it was already in place when they ruled on the Zach Ertz catch for the touchdown and the Corey Clement catch for a touchdown. When he had those conversations, he was in New York, Troy Vincent sitting next to him with Gene Steratore, the referee, on the field. They were having that conversation, and they were basically legislating on the fly during the Super Bowl, and now we've seen it enacted unanimously by the owners. And I'm just going to say, unintended consequences or not, this is an exciting day. We know what a catch is, at least for the time being. What do you got on the second rule that was passed, the so-called Gronk rule?
Well, everybody remembers that hit on Rob Gronkowski, and Rob Gronkowski made it on the Buffalo player.
Yeah, Tre'Davious White corner.
If it was flagged on the play, because he was flagged for unsportsmanlike conduct or personal foul, whatever it was, if it was flagged and it's a non-football act and they see it at the control center in New York, they can then call the game field and say he needs to be ejected. And that's exactly what will happen.
By the way,
and so they approved that, giving the authority to New York on a non-football act, personal foul that was flagged.
And New York, just to be clear, it's not impersonal New York. It's Al Riveron with Troy Vincent sitting next to him, as well as John Runyon, the league's enforcement chief. Those three guys will get together and look at it, and now the decision can be made in New York to eject that player. What do you got, Adam?
Look, it's a step in the right direction. Everybody remembers the outcry that there was after Gronk hit Tre'Davious White and was not ejected and was just penalized. Everybody could watch the play clear as day and see that he violated the rules. And I believe he was suspended the next week anyway. He should have had to sit out the next game. The league is putting into place a system where that in the future is not going to be allowed
Real quickly,
to happen.
Let's talk about one other thing. Is that was the pass interference penalty change that the New York Jets proposed. They pulled their proposal because there wasn't support. And the bottom line is that the Jets and some other teams, some other defensive coaches want to make pass interference a 15-yard penalty and not a spot foul. What happened there, Adam?
It just never gained any type of support amongst the competition committee. It was not going to ever pass. And because it wasn't going to pass, the Jets just simply withdrew it.
But there were defensive coaches,
yes.
And I mentioned Mike Tomlin of the Steelers, although he's a head coach, but guys who have defensive backgrounds and secondary backgrounds who made the case inside their meetings that this is not going to work because defensive backs and coaches are too savvy, and this game would turn into a mockery in their belief, even though it has a little support, but they threw it out. It's been withdrawn, and it's not going to be part of it.
But the bottom line is they have to do something about this egregious personal.
That's what you say. I don't think they have to do something.
4,671 yards penalized on pass interference last year. That's a lot. That's more passing yards than a lot of teams have. Morton had them. Wendy, we'll be here all day at the owners at the NFL annual meeting. Anything you want, we'll give it to you, Wendy.
Sal, perfect. We'll be right back there. Listen, because we could talk about this all day, really, the catch rule, because we're talking about it now because we did talk about it all day, almost every Monday during the regular season. It seemed like every week that's what we were turning to instead of who won what. It was, is that a catch? Tim, I think the biggest takeaway, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that this is no longer about surviving the ground, that once you've caught the ball, you've caught it, which I for one, like, but I'll get your thoughts.
I want to do this. I don't think we should gloss over what Mort said and what Sal also confirmed talking to Al Riveron. Basically saying that the Zach Ertz play and Corey Clement play in the Super Bowl were ruled differently. That this was an action before a vote.
Yeah.
That were ruled differently. That changes the biggest and most important game of the season. That's a massive thing. That's a big deal. Now, to get to the rule change, Look, I think all of these plays look like a catch, and they should be ruled as a catch, and that is a good thing. And so it's better than what it was, because things that look like a catch are now catches, and they should have always been. The issue now becomes there are going to be plays where it's, what's a football move? Is turning your head to look upfield a football move? Was Dez really reaching for the goal line? All of that stuff. And so not everyone's going to be happy. People are still going to disagree on stuff. But the stuff that looks like a catch and feels like a catch, it'll be ruled as a catch.
I think at least is a start. But you heard Mort say, this is good for now until we see the unintended consequences. I think you referred to that. The unintended consequences is subjective a bit what a football move is.
Well, it's going to be fumbles. There's going to be more fumbles. So how this practically shows up as an NFL player, you're going to see an individual period, maybe 5 or 10 minutes of practice each and every day for sure defensive players working on scoop and score. And what I mean by that, ball's on the ground, you're running real fast. You usually see that first player has a hard time picking it up. It's not a round ball. So scoop and score drills, working on plays that you think, that's been an incompletion in the past. We're going to go pick up that ball and we're going to try to score, whistle or no whistle. This is going to be a point of emphasis for coaches with players right away in OTAs.
But you know what, Diana? Now they can do that. Now we know the rule. It's been approved. It's March. It's the end of March. They can do that now from here until the start of the season, knowing that's what they'll play with.
Apparently they started in the Super Bowl doing this drill, which Tim and I looked at each other when they were saying it, like, is that true? Did that happen? And if you're a Patriots fan, you're sitting there kind of like, really? That's how that went down. But, there's still going to be room for error. This is not perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's why it hasn't been able to be figured out just yet. Do I think it's getting a little bit closer to that? Yes. I sort of like John Gruden's theory this entire time since he's gone back to Oakland to take over for the Raiders, which let's go back to the way we did it. What do you say?
I love
1998.
We spent 2 months insisting that he's going to get with the times and that he's ready to identify with the young players.
Well, when in doubt, it's like the old playbook for him, right? For it to work. But it's still not going to be perfected, but it seems like it may be a little bit closer now.
Listen, at the end of the day, if it looks like a catch and
feels like a catch.
Feels like a catch.
Like
I just don't want to say survive the ground anymore, so I'm happy about that.
It is a catch. The Browns front office has been busy this offseason, highlighted by some big trades to get wideout Jarvis Landry from Miami and then quarterback Tyrod Taylor out of Buffalo. Cleveland now needs a left tackle. Star Joe Thomas called it a career. Thomas, one of 3 players since the 1970 merger to be selected to a Pro Bowl in each of his first 10 seasons, along with Barry Sanders and a guy named LT. And the Browns have a league-high 5 draft picks in the first 2 rounds. That includes the first and 4th picks overall. Here's head coach Hugh Jackson on potential top pick Josh Allen.
He has a cannon. He can really throw a football. I think John said it. He threw a ball that hit a guy in the sternum, and I was like, I mean, you can hear it go boom. I mean, he can really throw a football. And when he does it all right from a biomechanic standpoint, from his body being in line and all that, he's as pretty as I've seen. You never know how this is going to unfold. And again, we're getting closer to knowing exactly how this thing may unfold. But we still have a lot of work to do as an organization to make those decisions.
Well, the calendar soon to turn to April, the month of the draft. Chris Mortensen back with us from Orlando. Mort, what are you hearing about the Browns' plans in next month's draft?
Well, listen, we've always believed 100% they are going to take their quarterback of the future with their first pick. In other words, they're not going to wait till the 4th pick to take that quarterback. John Dorsey, the general manager, says, are we open for business? Yeah, we're always open for business. So that's something that I think people have jumped on, but no matter what, they're going to take a quarterback. The belief is that this is Sam Darnold or Josh Allen, the Wyoming quarterback. And Baker Mayfield still in the picture because there's something about Baker Mayfield they really like. But I really think it's Darnold or Allen that they're looking at. But they are still doing the evaluations. They're going to finish the quarterbacks, I would say, sometime in the next 2 or 3 weeks, and they'll have a pretty good idea who they have a consensus on among the quarterbacks.
Mort, so you mentioned 3 of the 4 marquee names, at least in terms of these young quarterbacks we talk about. What about Josh Rosen? Is he in the Browns discussion?
Yeah, he's interesting because, on tape, people tell you he's the most pro-ready guy. But Jim Mora, his former UCLA coach on NFL Network last night, was asked, who would you take if you were Cleveland? And he said, without hesitation, Sam Darnold. It kind of made you sit up. And he said, it's the right fit. And he says, Sam comes from blue collar. He has a gritty attitude. He'll say the right things. His teammates will love him. Those are all traits, by the way, that any team, and he mentioned Rosen would be a better fit for New York. Well, the Giants and Jets, any coach, any general manager values those traits that he said about Darnold, which you can imply doesn't apply to Rosen. So that brings a stigma about Rosen that I think is real. People are working through it. He's really smart. Moore has said before he needs to be intellectually challenged, because one of the things teams have heard about Rosen is their offense at UCLA during various times was so simple for him. He wouldn't take notes in quarterback meetings, or simply he wasn't afraid to tell the offensive coordinator, this is too simple. Give me more. Give me more. And that's not a bad thing, but he's not for everybody.
It was thought to be the postseason that could have been after the Eagles lost their quarterback to a torn ACL. Instead, in came Nick Foles, and the backup QB proceeded to lead Philly to a Super Bowl win over New England. Sal Paolantonio caught up with head coach Doug Peterson to talk about, among other things, his famous backup quarterback.
Look who we got here, Doug Peterson, head coach of the Super Bowl champs. Doug, congratulations on the float in the parade, but I'll do it again here at the owners' meeting.
Thank you, Sal. I appreciate it.
Hey, Doug, so what's going on with Carson Wentz?
Carson's in the building every day. He's getting stronger. He's rehabbing. He's taking it one day at a time. We're not rushing anything, and he's looking good. He's in there with Jason Peters and Chris Maragos and Alshon Jeffrey and the guys and working. And
what is he doing? Tell us what he's doing.
Well, I mean, he's just doing his normal rehab. He's in the weight room. He's in the pools. It's just step by step where we're following doctor's orders, obviously, with him and
not running yet.
And not running. Nothing like that. He did throw, as we know, about a week or so ago, just standing, nothing crazy. And really he's right on track, right on where he needs to be. And again, we're going to take this thing slow.
How close did you come to trading Nick Foles?
I don't think we're really close at all. We just had to make sure it was right for the Philadelphia Eagles if something was going to come down our pipeline. And I mentioned it to Howie, and Howie and I are on the same page with this. And we feel like we got a great quarterback room, obviously with Nick and Nate Sudfeld, and it just goes to show you that having a veteran backup and what he
Sure.
can do, and the value that he has and the role that he has, and having the right guy in that position obviously helped us win a championship.
I know somebody could bowl you over with a proposal, but is it safe to say Nick Foles will be on the roster at the start of the 2018 regular season?
I think it's safe to say. Like you said, if anything comes in and it just blows our doors up, open, maybe. But right now, I'm comfortable with Nick and him coming in as the backup behind Carson.
We just talked to your GM, Howie Roseman. He said that the team was unaware of Michael Bennett's pending investigation in Houston. Is there anything else that you can share with us right now? Or is it you can't talk about it because it's a pending investigation?
I really can't comment on it. It's pending. I haven't really been up to speed, on what Howie's, the information he's been privy to. He and I are going to talk later tonight, but I'd rather not comment on that.
Adam Schefter joining us now, back again from Orlando in the owners' meetings. And let's start with Wentz, Adam, and what you're hearing regarding his recovery.
Well, Wendy, you've heard the Eagles head coach Doug Peterson and the general manager Howie Roseman at these meetings talk about the fact that Carson Wentz right now, they believe, is ahead of schedule coming off that torn ACL and LCL injuries that were projected to sideline him 9 to 12 months. The timeline has not changed. Carson Wentz continues to target a return on opening day, which would be September, which would be about 9 months, which would be a little aggressive. But you also heard the Eagles say that they're not parting ways with Nick Foles, that he will be back for the 2018 season. And so that is the built-in insurance policy that the Eagles now have in place, that if Carson Wentz isn't ready for opening day, even though he is ahead of schedule right now, Nick Foles would step in as the starter, and the Eagles would hope fare as well as he did in the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Such a valuable piece to have. The Seahawks released quarterback Trayvon Boykin this morning. What more can you tell us there, Adam?
Wendy, this stems from an alleged domestic violence incident down in Texas, where he is accused of domestic violence against his girlfriend, who wound up hospitalized, who's come forward with these Chargers at this particular time. Now, the Seahawks had heard something could be in the works last week. They checked into it, and I think Trevon Boykin assured them that nothing untoward had happened. But, of course, today there was a felony charge involved, and somebody with a background of incidents here now has another one on the ledger, and it led the Seahawks to the point where they were tired of listening to any excuses. They did not want to hear any more about the incident. They flat out cut Trevon Boykin later today, saying goodbye to the quarterback who had backed up Russell Wilson.
Adam, thank you. The NFL relaxed the celebration rules last season, and guess who took advantage? The Pittsburgh Steelers. They were among the most creative celebrators in the business. Head coach Mike Tomlin asked this morning at the owners' meetings in Orlando what he thought of all the shenanigans. Here's what he had to say. And he said it's for the entertainment of the fans, so I respect it on that level. But personally, I don't like it. I just think it takes away from the game. It's not a good look for young people. Young people aren't allowed to celebrate in that way, so why should we? He lost me there. I just don't understand quite that last part. But regardless, sounds good, sounds bad. Certainly okay as a head coach not to like all the shenanigans. But I don't know about not being able to celebrate. But anyway, we'll start with you, Tim. Sounds good, sounds bad.
It sounds bad. Listen, it's a sport. It's supposed to be fun. It is a business. I get all that stuff. It is entertainment. And I think that his team, quite honestly, they did a good job with it this year. They did a little hide and seek. They did a little bench press thing. I think there were other teams. The bobsled was certainly fun. But I don't think that his team took it too far. And I'm going to take it another level. I'm going to take it another level with him. There isn't a coach in the NFL that is quicker to start pounding his chest after a converted, 4-minute offense.
It's pot calling the kettle black here a little bit.
Listen, to
with
me,
the exception of maybe Sean Payton. He's the most.
I think the Steelers had a couple. The Steelers had a couple when they mocked Vontaze Burfict's injury. There was a couple that were like in poor taste.
So we don't want mocking.
But mostly, I think everyone would agree the celebration being relaxed, that was a good thing.
Apparently, old fans like it.
Not young ones.
But not Mike Tomlin.
Not Mike Tomlin.
He's mostly for
young people can't do it.
He respects
so why should we?
I'm not sure.
Value on it.
All right, listen, we move on. All right.
So many questions.
Seahawks coach Pete Carroll and Raiders coach John Gruden both expressed their disdain for instant replay. That was also today at the NFL owners' meetings in Orlando. Carroll said the scrutiny of officials have become so intense they don't call the game like they used to. And for Gruden, he offered this solution. Let the naked eye make the call. Eliminate instant replay and let the officials call the game. Slow motion is the biggest problem with replay. Throw slow-mo out and get back to common sense. I know I'm the only one up here who's going to agree with him. It drives me crazy. I say go back to the old days. Yeah, but I mean, I don't care. But
he's coming out from the booth. So if anyone understands the gripe as a fan of the slow-mo, it's John Gruden. But then obviously for the coaches and the players, it's got to feel like a million seconds every time they're
I'm throwing the flag on this. I know both these guys, John Gruden.
You don't think he means it?
I think they're already campaigning for calls. They're complimenting the officials right now in March. Man, forget instant replay. Let these officials
these
work.
Guys are good.
He's pumping them up, gassing them up. Their job's so hard.
Yeah.
Come on, let them just call the game.
All right, so
don't second guess them back in New York. I mean, it sounds bad. It's actually a great idea. Yes. This is a great idea.
It's a great idea.
Pumping up Pete Morelli
for that reason. These guys are not changing replay. Replay is not going anywhere.
No,
The league has already decided they want calls to be right. And so I think rather Gruden and Carroll are going to complain about their fair share of calls during the season.
But
don't complain about them now. This is brilliant.
They didn't. They did.
That's what I'm saying. Are you following me?
I got it. It's like, I thought we should have gotten rid of
Obviously,
the
we don't go with complimenting people here.
Yes.
So we'll say sounds good.
Sounds great.
Good idea.
I like it.
10 days ago, the New York Jets traded up from that number 6 spot. They will now be selecting number 3 overall in next month's draft. The Jets are in search of their next franchise quarterback, and moving into the top 3 would seemingly guarantee them a shot at picking one of the top signal callers. Our Jets reporter Rich Cimini tweeted this. Todd Bowles, the head coach, says they have 6 or 7 players worthy of the number 3 pick,
Yogi
Diana.
Berra, what?
I don't I don't.
That
sounds bad. It sounds stupid.
Yes, it does.
This sounds so bad.
It doesn't
this
sound
sounds
good.
so bad. It sounds so bad. Because in fact, if you had 6 or 7 players that you love, picking 6th.
I think you can do the
perfect.
math.
It's actually right where you would want to be.
Exact.
Because you still have a choice at 6 with guys that you love. Like, why would you?
I think this is one of those things you say and then you think about later.
It sounds bad. What happens right now? I think a lot of coaches are not telling the truth. You hear even
what gives you that idea?
You hear Hugh Jackson talk, pumping up the quarterback from Wyoming. Oh man, I was up in Laramie, Wyoming. This kid's he might think he's great, but he's not picking him. I don't know. I just don't buy anything that anybody's saying right now, and that's just a hilarious.
Well, that one also just doesn't make any sense. I mean, in addition to the smokescreen, it also needs to be.
It reminds me. Remember when
plausible.
Kobe Bryant was going to do the dunk contest, and they said, "You doing the dunk contest this year?" And he said, "No, I'm getting too old for that, but maybe next year."
Yeah, you're not getting younger, dude.
Yogi Berra, everybody. All right. Well, there you go. Another edition of Sounds Good, Sounds Bad, and Confusing. Johnny Manziel continues to eye a comeback in the NFL. A week or so after throwing at San Diego's Pro Day and helping out there, Manziel threw at Texas A&M's Pro Day today. He has expressed interest in a future NFL gig.
My attitude started to change a little bit when I did get the okay to play in the CFL, and I knew that I was going to have a contract no matter what. At that point in time, though, I didn't really have a lot of NFL buzz or really anything going for me, I feel like. Now I think it's a little bit better, but, I can't tell. I can come out here and do this all day, but I don't know what these guys are saying behind the scenes or in the buildings around the NFL. So, I do know that, if for whatever reason, I don't get the opportunity, which is what I want in the NFL, I'm going to go up to a great league in the CFL and I'm going to play and I'm going to try and play my best. That's all I can really do. But I do have that offer on the table. I'm going to try and exhaust my options getting back to the NFL. And if not, then I'm going to gladly take my talents north of the border.
The CFL's Hamilton Tiger Cats currently own Manziel's rights. And I will say this, football aside, it's good to see any young person getting their life together, accepting some responsibility. But from the football side of things, Tim, do you have a shot here? What's his best pathway to another shot in the NFL?
Probably Canada. I think that's the case. The reality is that when he was playing in the pros, and there might have been a number of reasons why, he didn't look like he knew what was going on. He didn't have a clear understanding. Even in preseason games where there were simple concepts, he wouldn't even be looking the right way. And so his issues aren't necessarily just physical, but I think the mental aspect of the game, I believe that he's always been far behind.
Well, and knowing what was going on in his life at that time,
yeah, it makes you wonder.
How could you expect to be successful? CFL, without a doubt, I think would be the logical path for him. Then you know what? Go up there and you do well, and who knows what happens.
I think he could do great up there. Guys that can move around do great up there. Think of the Henry Burris's and Doug Flutie. Guys that have gone up there that can really move can excel in that league.
And we've certainly seen guys go up there, do well, and get another shot and come back and make the most of it. Doug Flutie, chief among them.